Hey creative friends, it's Gwen and I'm back today with another scrapbooking process video. Today's share is featuring Pink Fresh Studios' Some Days collection, and it is part of the Challenge Me, Challenge You series that I have been doing with Sue Plum. I've gone ahead and pre-planned some of this layout. I will be using these tags here. I created them in a very recent video that I just shared, so I'll leave a link to that here. Here's the photo I'm documenting and let's jump in. I chose this collection for the very pretty shade of blue. I thought it would tie in with my photo really nicely, and I'm going to begin by just creating the background for my page. I do this all the time. I really like to have a framed border for my layout bases, and right here is where the challenge comes in. So this month Sue has challenged me to use Distress Oxide in 2 ways. She did indeed see the video where I recently shared my obsession with using this brush through a stencil. I love this. I can't believe it's taken me so long to jump onto this technique. So I had to include it for this layout, but she's challenged me to use it in 2 ways. So I have figured out another way that I can use the Distress Oxide that's still very much my style. I did mention it earlier that just last week I went and used up an entire jar of modeling paste. I created a bunch of tags, and I have to say that process really surprised me. I quite enjoyed it. I am not really a big fan of mixed media. I don't really like the mess, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed that process. But more importantly, I was surprised by the time it took, the little time it took to use up a whole jar. I thought it would take hours. It took maybe an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 3/4. And it's definitely something I would recommend and something that I'm going to do again. There was one small problem though. I had totally forgotten to add clear gesso underneath the modeling paste, and I knew I wanted to use the Distress Oxide in this way, in like a watercolor technique. So having the clear gesso I felt was important because I did want the color to run across the tag. So I messaged Sue and got her opinion, and I also asked the question in the community tab on the channel and got some great advice about the ability to add the clear gesso over the top. Totally fine, you can do that. You just need to make sure that it's super dry. So I made sure to do it on a separate day. And I really love how this turned out. Look how pretty that is. It's sort of like a watercolory look. And the best part is that it's still very neat because all of the mixed media is contained on that tag. So that is Sue's challenge part done. My challenge to Sue was to actually pull out her dies and her Sizzix machine. So I wanted to include that here as well. And I have done that 2 ways as well. Firstly, the tags that I've just added my mixed media to, those were cut from a Sizzix die, a thinlet die. The other thing I wanted to do was include a couple of embellishments. So I've gone with a classic. I have this butterfly die. It is part of a set and I haven't used any of these yet. So I was super keen to get a couple of pretty butterflies onto my page. Oh yes, and did you see that? This is a little hack that I have for you to get the papers out of your thinlet dies. You can actually just drop them onto your bench and they actually fall out. I'm ready to put the layout together, and this is what I love about the tag elements. I can now use that as a layering piece or as a embellishment sort of element. Anywhere on my page, I can move it around, I can audition it as much as I like, and I know I can't do that if I'm adding the mixed media directly to my background. So I am loving this. So I have my mixed media background layer where I used the stencil. Then I've layered on top of that the tag element. And I did already actually have a couple of elements that had been fussy cut out. I think I binge cut out a bunch of the florals from one of the pattern papers. So I had those, and I am going to use those in my layers here. I've also pulled out a couple of chipboard frames from my stash. I have a bunch of these and I am trying to use them up. Oh, but you'll have to stay till the end because there's some major changes that happen. For now, I am running with this design and I am thinking about building out my lovely floral clusters. So there are a couple of die cuts from the collection that I do use, and I do sort of trim them up a little bit and split them out. So there's going to be a cluster on the left, which will be the main cluster, and then I'll balance that out with a smaller one on the right, in the bottom right-hand corner of the photo. If I had my time again, I would have actually added a little bit more of that mixed media background to the right-hand side of the page. I have actually only left it on the left, and then I've covered up quite a lot of it with the florals and things. So yeah, it's there, but I wish I had just a little bit more of it. But by the time I realized that, it was a bit too late. Things are getting serious because I am gluing stuff down. I have indeed glued the frames down. I have glued my photo into position. And I'm just pressing on and thinking a little bit more about rounding out my clusters and what I'm going to add as supporting elements, which will be the butterflies. My main focus at this point in the process is balance. I want to make sure that the layout feels very balanced on the page, but also that the left side is balanced to the right side. It doesn't mean that they have to be equal because I know that I want my main cluster to be on the left, but I do want it to feel balanced. I was pretty happy with how everything was going. I did want to add in a couple more of the sticker elements, some puffy stickers. To me at this point, it was missing those smaller details. I had like my tag, obviously, the photo, the frames, the florals were quite big. Even the butterfly elements are quite big. So I was trying to find medium and smaller elements to add at this stage. And in the moment, I kind of felt like I hit a wall. It's funny because looking back at the footage now, I don't feel the same way. But at the time, I was like, I didn't feel like it was coming together. And often that is how I feel. There's a point in the layout usually where I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it starts off really well and I've got a plan and it's all going along the right path. But then quite frequently it gets to a point where I almost get stuck. And I've just come to realize that it's part of my process and that I need to push through that to get to the other end. But this one, I don't know. It was actually funny. This very weekend, we had a little bit going on and I didn't quite feel that I was 100% in my groove, but I really wanted to get this layout done. It is part of a commitment that I have made to Sue. So I was like, today's the day, it's going to happen. And I do say that you shouldn't force creating, and maybe this is why. I decided at this point that I didn't like the frames. And I was like, oh man, do I start over? Can I get the frames out from underneath the photo? So I did my best. I managed it. Oh man, only just. I do end up pulling up the photo completely in a moment here. I was hopeful that I might just be able to cover up that top one with a tag, but I don't. I end up biting the bullet, pulling the photo off. It's so glued on. Oh, I thought, you know what? I thought worst case, I can reprint the photo if it really buckles and I make a absolute mess of it. I can reprint the photo. I did have more of that pattern paper, so I had a bit of a buffer there. But yeah, I don't know why. All of a sudden, I just decided I didn't like the frames. I don't think they're that bad. Maybe I should have kept them. Let me know what you think. You saw it with the frames and you'll see it in a moment here, fully completed. Let me know what you think. Oh yes, that's right. The other reason I wanted to get rid of the frames was because I wanted to include a title, and I just couldn't see how I could make that work. So I thought what I would do is keep my title very short and have it fit onto that bottom section of the tag. The other thing I would have done is add some stitching across the title. I really like the look of that, the stitching into the puffy sticker, and I totally forgot. And by the time I remembered, it was really stuck down and there was no way I was tempting fate twice. It had to be what it was. So with that all sorted, it is now time to move back onto the medium and smaller embellishments and trying to round this layout out and get it to a place where I'm happy. I do include a couple of really small, they're like a chipboard sticker in the center of the butterflies. And then I did add back in, see, I've added that tag element back up the top. And it's really at this point that I realized that you can't see very much of my pretty mixed media tag. So if I could change something about that, I would definitely scooch my photo over a little bit to the right, just so that you could see a little bit more of the pretty tag I made, because I really did like the look of that. So mental note for next time. So after auditioning a lot of cute little floral elements, I'm happy with how that's looking, and I am going to finish out the layout by adding in some enamel dots. I also want to share with you some of the pretty details in these close-up images. You can see the die-cut butterflies, you can see the layers in the floral elements, really loving all of that. Thanks for being here, my creative friends. If you like the way that I scrapbook or the way that I chat about the way that I scrapbook, I would love it if you give this video a thumbs up. Want to make a layout just like this one? Then you'll need my tips for fussy cutting. I'll leave a link to that video here and I'll see you all next time. Until then, bye!